On today's episode, we're going to talk about the German science fiction series Dark on Netflix. It is one of my favorite series of all time, and in my opinion, it is one of the best examples of science fiction. I know the last season premiered back in June last year, so I kind of missed the wave of talking about it on YouTube then, but you know what? Gosh darn it, I'm going to talk about it now! Hello, Yin Lieblings. I'm Mari, science fiction and fantasy author who's been living in southern Germany since 2014. Today, we're going to talk about Dark, one of my all-time favorite science fiction series that also happens to be German! I want to talk about why I love it as a science fiction writer, and also why I think the show is so great, both at a structural level as well as an emotional one. But before we get started, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell if you haven't already. Here on Adventures of Lamati, we talk about writing, living abroad, and everything in between. Also, stay tuned until the end of the episode where I have a fun announcement about a story. A free story. Anyway, first, this will be a spoiler-free episode because I want people to experience this show for themselves. If after watching this episode, Dark seems like the show for you, then I don't want to take that experience away from you. If it doesn't sound like your cup of tea, that's okay too. Science fiction is not for everyone. So let's start with the big picture stuff. Dark is a series spanning 3 seasons, starting with the disappearance of a young boy, and then zooms out and focuses on the fictional German town of Winden as they try to discover the truth. The story follows the connection between 4 estranged families to unravel a sinister time travel conspiracy which spans several generations. The series also explores the existential implications of time and its effect on human nature. Yeah, it's a lot. First, if you do decide to tackle the story, watch it in your native language, unless you're really good at subtitles. I'm one of those people who prefers to watch a movie in its native language, so naturally I watch Dark in German. In fact, I've watched it multiple times in English and in German subtitles because there's a lot to catch and you don't want to miss a detail. And this is not a show to have on while you're scrolling through social media. You gotta pay attention. And it's also one of those shows you'll want to watch more than once because you will catch more details as you go. The story is just that complex. I'm also one of those people who loves watching a movie or whatever more than once, especially because the story is further enriched by each subsequent viewing. And not everyone likes that, but I think it is the best way to fully grasp everything that's happening. One of my first episodes on this channel dove into the differences between Americans and Germans, and one of the biggest differences is the idea that Germans like to plan ahead as much as possible, and Dark is a perfect example of this. The writers had not only planned the 3 seasons in its entirety, but already, allegedly, had all of the scripts already written before they started working with Netflix for season 1. Honestly, you don't find that level of planning often in mainstream TV shows. Nowadays, you find complicated shows that either have no plan from the start, like pretty much everything that is written by J.J. Abrams, and thus once you get to the series finale, you're left with a lot of holes, or you get a show that only had the endpoint planned, and then the rest kind of gets shoehorned in, even if the rest of the story no longer organically fits, like Game of Thrones or How I Met Your Mother. Science fiction is a genre that does benefit greatly from planning, or plotting as we writers call it, especially in hard science fiction that already requires a lot of research and planning. And then there's the whole process of making the correct science work in a cohesive narrative. I have such great respect for hard science fiction writers. I feel like we soft science fiction writers have it a little easier. I do have a great idea of where my series is going to go, but since it's more based on human relationships and behavior, I let my characters get to their destination more organically. So I can't plan that much in detail comparatively. So there's a great quote from The Observer about the intricacies of Dark versus J.J. Abrams' Lost. So creators Jantje Friese and Baran Booda developed a tightly woven web of intricacy that stays well within the parameters of the end game. Practically every question is answered, every mystery solved, every phenomena explained. Nearly all of the show's teasing detours are paid off, and the answers are sufficiently satisfying. Where Lost bled pure entropy as its seasons carried on, Dark feels like controlled chaos, a masterclass of narrative structure. If you are a plotter-writer, Dark truly is a masterclass in the importance of tight structure. Also, in case you're wondering like how in-depth these writers planned, just to give you an idea, the second season counts down towards an apocalypse that's supposed to take place on June 27th, 2020. When did the third season premiere? June 27th, 2020. It's such a small detail, but it's one that you can't help but appreciate. And I know I said no spoilers. I know I didn't really think that was much of a spoiler because it's like in the trailers anyway. So at this point, I've kind of gone on and on about the big stuff, but you probably want some more specifics without spoilers. First, this story spans multiple generations. Like I mentioned before, the story revolves around 4 families and their connections with each other. It all plays out like a Greek tragedy and even a Latino telenovela where the connections between these families get really complicated really fast. I will say the hardest aspect to keep track of is which actors are playing which part from which timeline. And I definitely understand that complaint because unless you like that sort of ambitious storytelling, it can be a huge headache. But I do enjoy intergenerational storytelling, how trauma or an event that can affect one generation and works its way down to the next and then the next. Like, it is one of the themes of Dark, and it follows the tradition of literary classics like Colleen McAuliffe's The Thornbirds or even Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. But just like the title of the show states, it's dark. Everything about the show is dark. The mood, the music, the tone, the story, it's all dark. And it's also very German. One word, very efficient. It's a perfect title though, jokes aside. When Dark first came out, a lot of people have compared the show to Stranger Things because it's on Netflix, small town, kid missing, 80s nostalgia, blah, blah, blah. Personally, I find it interesting as someone who is originally from Indiana, like in Stranger Things, and now lives in Germany, like in Dark. I will tell you that that's where the comparison ends. Okay, so Dark is definitely more rooted in science, while Stranger Things is more supernatural, which is fitting for Indiana, if you know anything about Indiana. But anyway, I'm going to also tell you a little secret as someone who's lived in Germany for over 6 years. Germans are also allowed to have 80s nostalgia as well. In fact, the 3 time periods in Dark were chosen because of their cultural significance to Germany's identity and history. And also, the writers have admitted that Twin Peaks is actually one of their bigger influences. A simple murder mystery or disappearance of a child that slowly reveals something more sinister and lurking beneath the looks of an ordinary town. And the reason why, with 1986 specifically, it was chosen for 2 reasons, in my opinion. One being because the nuclear power plant plays a massive role in the story. And Chernobyl also happened in 1986. So while we Americans know it, of course, the effects were not so crucial as they were for Germans. I remember my mother-in-law telling me stories how they were not allowed to eat mushrooms from their own ground for years because of the nuclear fallout. Chernobyl is half a world away from the US, but it's right around the corner for Germany. And the second is the Neue Deutsche Welle. So we Americans, of course, we have our 80s nostalgia in movies and music, and so does Germany. Not everything revolves around the US. I'm sure I'm going to get comments on getting the time frame wrong, but according to my research, the Neue Deutsche Welle, or the New German Wave of, this is music genre, began in 1981 and ended around 1983-1984. And it is, like I said, a movement of 80s music that has its own original and distinct style that was influenced in no small part by the different sound and rhythm of the German language. So, I mean, granted, 1986 doesn't fall under the NDW, but anyone who's lived in Germany can tell you that the influence of the NDW even today, like, you literally can't go to a Volksfest in Germany and not hear at least one song from the NDW. Like I said, Germany has their own 80s nostalgia. Now, one of the big NDW singers was Nina, a Americans know her song 99 Red Balloons, but her number 2 biggest hit of all time was Irgendwie, Irgendwo, Irgendwann, which was used in Dark. And the song translates to somehow, somewhere, sometime. And it is a love song where the singer says that in the midst of space and time, now is the time for some tenderness before the night returns. And also building a castle out of sand, somehow, somewhere, sometime. I swear, nothing is wasted in this show. Every tiny detail plays a part in the story. It is brilliant. Oh, I love this show, and I could probably spend the length of 3 seasons going through every episode and just fangirling like the nutter I am, but I won't put you through the torture. But what about you guys? Are you fans of the show? What do you love about it? I am personally glad Netflix has taken chances and created content from creators all over the world. I think Hollywood is getting rather stale in the sense that Disney pretty much owns everything now, so we are only getting certain stories being told. But what are your thoughts? I would love to hear them, and let me know in the comments below. So if you have made it this far into the episode, I really appreciate you hearing my fangirling. I really do. And I have a special announcement. If you have been following my newsletter, I have talked about having a prequel short story set 10 years before the events of the God Queen. It is finally finished, and this is what it's called. While the God Queen focuses on Rey and Bronx, this short story focuses on Rey's older brother and Bronx's mentor, Niclaren. He is a dire knight who wants to find the person who murdered his parents. This same person is also hunting his sister Rey, who has spent most of her young life hiding away from Niclaren in some remote town on Earth. He fears for her safety, and now that he is knighted, he thinks he is able to take care of her. He takes her on a pilgrimage to a nearby holy city, and it's the first time he has to actually spend time with his sister, and he learns that everything he assumed about her and her life on Earth is not what he expected. If this sounds interesting, the short story is free for my newsletter subscribers. I have been debating putting it up on sale as an ebook on Amazon, but if there's a demand, then maybe I'll do it. But we'll see. You let me know what you think. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up. It lets me and YouTube know you like content like this and you want to see more. Please leave me a comment if you have any questions or there's a certain topic you'd like to see on this channel. If you want fun escapism, my space fantasy, The God Queen, is available in ebook, paperback, and hardback. I have all the links in the description below. If you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get the first 6 chapters for free, as well as my prequel short story. So sign up. Also, if you have read any of my work, or you have a favorite author you read tons of their work of, please leave a review. It really helps us authors out, and it's free to do so. And don't forget to connect with me on social media, whether it is through Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And that's it. Until next time, adi!